yourself a suit and tie and get your hair cut way up high. Get yourself a lawyer, son. You're gonna need a real good one.
Here comes the judge, everyone. It's David Whiting, Melbourne solicitor, who is here to dispense, free of charge, legal advice. David, good morning.
Good morning. Welcome back.
Thank you. Nice to have you.
Thank you.
It's nice to be here as well, actually. How'd you go with Ellie? You play nicely?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. We've been on speaking terms of a number of occasions over the years.
You have indeed. You got some homework?
I have a couple of bits of homework. Rebecca from Blackburn rang and she was having a rather lengthy hands-free conversation on her mobile telephone and she just pushed to make sure that the charging cord was connected properly because she was afraid that if she didn't, the call would drop out or she'd lose power or whatever.
Which would be just shocking.
And the question is that permitted or is it not permitted?
No,
and the
it's
answer
not
is clearly the rule is fairly simple that and that the driver does not require, the use of the phone does not require that the driver at any time while using it to press anything the body of the phone or otherwise manipulate any parts of the body of the phone. So pushing the charging cord into the phone constitutes a breach of Road Regulation 300.
Absolutely. And you know how I know that?
A dear close personal friend has that experience?
Yep.
Yep, okay.
Quite some time ago.
Yes.
And this dear close personal friend got their act together very, very quickly and would never, ever do such a thing again. But, yep.
Yep, okay.
And this dear close personal friend was told by a copper who stuck his head through the window and said, if you touch any part of that phone. And so I spoke to dear close personal friend and said, well, don't go doing that again. And they said, no, I won't.
No.
Right, nothing we can quote from that anecdote, so I think we're all clear here.
Okay, second one was Lee from Gippsland. Lee's mum and dad are beginning to age and she's thinking what happens when they move into care. The reason is that she has a foster sister who's intellectually disabled and lives with them.
Right.
And the question was what happens to the house in those circumstances. So from pension entitlements and from entry into aged care costs and all of those things.
Yeah.
And I don't have a precise answer for Lee based on the information that we've got, but I can say that under the Social Security Act, the foster sister would be counted by the Secretary of the Department as a member of the family, so treated for all intents and purposes as a child. And then the question is, am I a homeowner with that home or not? And the answer would be, from a Centrelink and an aged care point of view, they would be considered as homeowners because the house was required for the foster daughter with a disability. So It's not as bad as Lee. It's not as if the foster daughter is going to need to leave as a result of the issue.
Okay.
They end up with what would be a relatively good social security outcome.
Okay. Well, not many people need your legal advice today. So you can stay
leave early.
Stay for a couple of minutes and then just head off.
Okay.
You and I'll go and get coffee. Really? No one? Or just a couple of people want help? One person only wants help this morning. If by chance you might need some help, there is one or two lines free here, and here is how you secure them. 1300 222 774. David Whiting is in the building and he's ready to help you out. Ivan in Northcote, good morning to you.
Good morning, Virginia. Good morning, David.
Morning.
Thanks for taking my call.
Far away.
Thank you. I'm just calling on behalf of my dad, who was involved in a traffic incident in Preston, where he's been living the past 30 years. Just on the junction where Spring Street meets Murray Road and St George's Road, he was basically waiting in the left slip lane where you have to wait for an arrow, and it was sort of taking a very long time. He was waiting there for like 7 to 10 minutes.
Yes.
And there was a person in front of him, and that person ended up, once the light to go straight went green, they sort of took off and went straight. And my dad continued to wait, and he sort of realised that there must be something wrong, and eventually sort of made the decision to go through the red light.
Yes.
And as luck would have it, there was an unmarked police car
Yes.
right behind him.
Yes.
Right behind him.
Sounds like Virginia's telephone story. Yep.
And yeah, they obviously proceeded to they sort of pulled him over at the local sort of shopping centre, and they asked him why he went through, and he he pretty much explained exactly what I just told you guys, and they said, look, still got an issue with the fine, and $400 fine, 3 demerit points, and I guess it's my dad knows the area, he knows how they should work, and these guys are from Greensboro.
Ivan, it's a fairly simple exercise. You would need to be able to prove that the switching system, that the lighting system was not working properly at the time.
Right.
Yeah, how do you do that?
So your argument is that it's not a traffic control system because it's not controlling the traffic.
I
would have thought your chances would be next to nil.
Yeah. Yeah, because we wanted to contest it in court, but I was going to ask you what the chances were of it getting
Your dad has been charged with failing to obey a traffic control signal. His defence is in the sense that it wasn't a traffic control system. It wasn't controlling the traffic at the time the incident occurred, but the lights were on. You can go to Vic Roads and ask were there any service issues on that intersection at the time, but otherwise it's an offence of strict liability, $400 and 3 demerit points.
Right. Okay.
Which is not...
In fact, if you go to court, Ivan, it's probably a higher fine.
Yeah.
Oh, I see.
It's a higher potential fine. The magistrate could take it down to 400, but it would be a fine and demerit points. You haven't obeyed the traffic signal.
Could go worse, so maybe cut your losses. Ivan, thanks for calling in. Good luck to your dad. David in South Morang, good morning.
Good morning, Virginia and David. David, my question is, you talked about the mobile phone usage and the Act. On the Vic Roads website, they say that a fully licensed driver can use a phone to make or receive a call if it's secured in a commercially designed hold affixed to the vehicle, or it can be operated by the driver without touching any part of the phone. So the Vic Roads site would indicate that if you got it in a commercially designed holder, you can touch it because of the word or. So in this case...
Okay, I've now read the whole of the road rule in front of me, David, and it says, the phone is being used to make or receive an audio phone call or perform audio playing function, and the body of phone is secured in a mounting affixed to the vehicle while being so used, or is not being held by the driver, and the use of the phone does not require the driver at any time while using it to press anything on the body of the phone or otherwise manipulate any part of the body of the phone. So you're right. The answer is that if it is fixed, you would be able to touch it, I believe, to turn it on or off. But if it was sitting on the seat next to you or in the centre console, can't touch it.
So thank you for calling in with that.
Thank you very much, David.
You know
Thanks for
what's
clarifying.
bewildering, though, and I remember thinking this the other day because I was stopped at the lights and I pulled out my diary, I have a handwritten diary.
Yes.
Bound.
Old-fashioned, yes.
I'm very old-fashioned. And I was just jotting something because it occurred to me. And I thought, how come me sitting here at the lights writing something in my diary is actually not illegal? But if I grabbed my phone and tapped it in, note to self, must get milk, that would be. They're both distracting. I mean, I made a note, don't do that with your diary next time either. But, being utterly frank here, the difference being...
So why would it not be failing to pay adequate attention?
Probably is. I've probably just, scored myself another fine here.
My view is it would be a fine. Probably drinking coffee in the car is fineable too.
Virginia, stop digging the hole is what I'm saying to myself at this point.
Yeah, just another dear close personal friend.
Exactly. Mark in Ballarat, what's going on?
Hey, how are you?
Well,
Good.
thanks.
Hey, just a query. I had a dog that was that got out of our yard, got picked up by the pound, and it was put in an RSPCA run the pound. When I went to pick it up the day after, $160 fee for the overnight stay.
Yes.
And I asked them whether was this a fine. They said no, it's just a fee that we charge. So I would then get a fine from the council, another $120 for the privilege for the dog to stay there.
Yes.
So I'm wondering.
Now the fine is for having the dog out.
Is it a fine from RSPCA or? $160, you can stay in a pretty good hotel for that in Ballarat. So,
yeah, not all of them allow dogs, though, no.
No, that's right.
Yeah.
And look,
No,
it
you're
happens
liable for.
twice.
You will be liable for both. There'll be a provision that will allow both to be charged. And what I want you to do is think of the way they take cars from clearways around Melbourne, and they take them to a pound or an impounding yard, and you need to pay to get the car out, and you need to pay the fine as well.
Okay.
Same
Right,
principle.
Okay.
All right, good luck. Thanks for calling in. Manny in Northcote, how can we help you?
Look, I've got a client in an aged care facility where we are questioning the contract. I went to Fair Trading in Victoria. I spoke to VCAT, and no one wants to know anything because they suggest that we go to the Australian Quality Commission, Aged Care Quality and Safety Commission, and we go round and round in circles. Now, I won't name names, but a rather largish organisation, if you took them to court, I can assure you will throw everything at it because there are a lot of breaches with regards to contracts in aged care facilities.
Okay.
Especially
Are we talking
food.
about, have you got an objection to the particular form of contract use, or is it the behaviour of the operator? What is it?
Both.
Okay, well, there's a law firm in Melbourne who we won't name who produces most of the contracts for aged
Yes,
care.
I think I know they are, yeah.
And it would be possible for you, there's an unfair contracts provision in the Fair Trading Act, and really they are contracts of adhesion not of bargain. So there are, so in the same way as you could take on a telco contract, you could also take on an aged care contract if you thought that the terms of the contract were unfair or unreasonable. I would also say, however, sorry?
And confusing.
I don't find them the easiest thing to read, but what the difficulty is, they're required to match specific provisions in the legislation.
Yes,
So that every time there's a change in the legislation, the contract needs to be reviewed. What's the particular provision you have the problem with, Manny?
Food, the quality of food.
I don't know that the quality of the food will be a provision in the contract. They're obliged to provide food for you, the provider, but there's also an aged care line, and then there's a discussion as to what the budget for the food is certainly a significant issue. So, Manny, if you think the contract terms are unfair, you can go to VCAT and you can make a claim that the contract terms are unfair.
Manny, thanks so much for your call today. Kevin's in Heathmont. Good morning.
Good morning. Thanks for the segment.
Yep.
Thanks for the segment, David.
Yep, pleasure.
David, I have a property that I rent, and there was a leak in the gas line which runs under the driveway, and either the local gas supplier or their contractors dug up the driveway, which was pattern paved, and then repaired it with bitumen. So it's got a big bitumen scar down the middle, which looks horrible. I just wondered, do I have any recourse? Is it worth pursuing at all?
Is there a make good provision here?
Kevin, if you were to walk down Hardware Street in the city, Hardware Lane was beautifully paved until last year when they did some underground work and they found that there's now an incredible amount of fairly ordinary looking asphalt. My issue is, so we're talking about work done on your property?
Yes.
You need to understand that your obligation is to maintain the gas line from the main to your property. It's not a question of what side of the meter is on. The placement of the meter is for convenience because it would look really daggy in the middle of the road.
Yeah.
So it's, in one sense, it's your responsibility to maintain that gas line.
Yeah, okay.
All right, so in the same way, so the gas company does a repair. If you want something particularly special, then it's up to you.
So they don't have to make it look like it was before?
For those kinds of works, no, they don't.
Yeah, unfortunately, it runs under the driveway, which is a crazy place to put it, but that's obviously in history.
Right.
Well, that was somebody before you.
Yeah.
Yes.
Long before the paving went down.
So you're going to have to do some home paving there, Kevin, in order to make it look as schmick as it was before. Matt in Sassafras. Good morning.
Good morning.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi.
We moved into our newly built home 2 years ago, and since then the roof has leaked a few times, and the roofers that did the roof have come and fixed it every time. But 2 years on, they've suggested some remedial works and suggesting that we need to pay for them. and their argument is that the reason why these remedial works were required is because of the engineers' suggestion in regards to changes they had to make it fireproof. And they're saying that if they didn't have to make those changes, they wouldn't need these current remedial works.
I think my claim would be you didn't subcontract this out. You had a contract with a builder who did everything.
Correct.
Then make the claim on the builder. The answer would be there's a defect in the building.
Okay.
It's the builder's obligation to make sure it complies with all of the regulations, not just some of them.
Yep. And so if there's a fault per se, like with the roof, then it still falls to the builder to liaise with the trade and get it corrected.
Well, it doesn't need to use that plumber, but the builder is required to give you a code-compliant building.
Yep.
If there is a defect which has caused this problem, then the answer would be, I bought it from you. It was up to you to make it compliant. Fix the problem.
Cool.
Good luck.
Thank you,
Matt.
Mary.
Thanks for calling in. Hope that's helpful. Oh dear, got some bad news here, David, on
Yes.
text. I just read the text. Anonymous texter, I don't want to do him in, but my husband was booked for holding and looking at his diary when he was stopped at the lights.
Okay.
It's anonymous, so we're not doing him in, but you might be doing me in. There could be a copper waiting for me out the front of Southbank here when I leave today.
Yeah.
And
Look, it's too hard to get into the building now, you're safe. Yep.
And Colin in Bendigo says, has clearly looked it up. It's called failing to have full control and uninterrupted view.
Okay.
I'm not holding my diary up in front of my eyes. I mean, I'm not
No, but you're
blocking the
looking
windscreen.
down. You're looking down. You're more than glancing down.
What?
Virginia, you're not on trial here. Let's go and try somebody else.
Yeah, let's try. I'm starting to feel like I really am. Michael in Pakenham, good morning.
Hello, Virginia. Hello, David.
Good morning.
Thanks for taking the call. Look, I'm not quite sure how to explain this, but I'll give it a try, so please bear with me.
Mm-hmm.
A friend of mine was called by hospital because his mate was admitted for various reasons, but he was called as next of kin.
Mm-hmm.
And then they asked him for permission to operate. And my understanding with like senior citizens and the elderly is that you can sign over power of attorney for permission to do significant things like that. But
Medical power of attorney, yes.
Yeah, yes, but my friend was not signed over as a medical power of attorney.
When you're admitted to hospital, Michael, you're often asked who your next of kin is. And your next of kin is, in that particular situation, the person that you nominate. If I was to, depending on your age, if you think about it, your next of kin is at law the person who's closest to you. Right. So that would be, presumably, depending on your age, your partner, your parents, your child, eldest child, second child, etc. So, but you could nominate who that person might be. Now, if you... The concept of a medical treatment power of attorney doesn't exist anymore and has been replaced by the appointment of a medical treatment decision maker. Right. And that person, if you've got one of those, that person goes to the top of the list ahead of the next of kin. So there's provisions in the legislation that says whoever I expressly appoint by one of these documents goes first, and after that it's next of kin.
I was just wondering, though, what the legal responsibilities of the next of kin were to things like the decision.
No, your friend had no responsibilities. Your friend did not need to take action. Right. But in the event that your friend did decide to step up and make some decisions, he had to do so in accordance with the wishes as best known to him or in the best interest of the person who is represented. Right,
okay. I think that makes sense.
Good. Right. I hope that clears it up.
That.
No worries. Thank you. Thanks for calling in. Graham in Mitcham, what's going on there?
Yes, good morning. My question concerns a family debt situation. I have a situation where a member of a family has loaned a substantial amount of money to a sibling. That was some years ago. And the person doing the loan has delayed the repayment until the debtor had the means to do so. That has now occurred through an inheritance, but still the debtor refuses to make the payment. What legal options are open to recover that debt, please?
In a family situation, Graham, the question you have to ask, was there an intention to create legal relations? Sometimes in a family situation where there's almost an assumption of gift rather than loan, that's normally a parent-child assumption rather than a sibling-sibling assumption. How long ago was the debt incurred?
The debt was incurred, David, about 4 years ago.
Then you're in plenty of time. There's a 6-year limitation period. You would issue proceedings in the magistrate's court, assuming the debt to be less than $100,000.
Yeah, the debt's around somewhere between $30,000 and $40,000.
The magistrate's court has jurisdiction, and you start with a letter of demand, and you then issue proceedings in the magistrate's court for recovery of the money.
Fine, and that's enforceable, is it, David?
Which bit? The loan of the money is presumably noted by emails or exchanges of correspondence.
Yes, there's a bank statement. There's a bank statement.
No, that's proof of payment. We're not talking. That's only one of the elements.
Mm-hmm.
So the child who lent the money would be basically saying, I reached an agreement that I would lend this person this amount of money, and it was to be repaid upon the happening of this event. This event has occurred. The repayment has not been made. I've made a demand for payment. I now want to be paid.
Fine.
And then you get a judgment in the magistrate's court, and you can enforce that against the assets of the sibling who got the loan.
Good luck with that. I think we've got time for just one last call. Caitlin in the Mornington Peninsula. Good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
Well, thank you.
Thanks for taking my call. My mum booked a $20,000 holiday to Canada and Alaska in September of 2019. She booked it with a local travel agent that then booked it with an online Australian tour operator.
Yes.
And she was to depart in May 2020. She paid approximately $4,000 on a credit card as an instalment and completed paying for the holiday in December 2019.
Yep.
Sorry, I'm really nervous. So essentially she's being offered a credit note, which they are giving her limited capacity to use, and it seems that from the online reviews, people who are being offered credits, there was only a limited number of places being supplied through their online booking system.
Caitlin, I'm going to take this one on notice, and I'm going to do it because there was a case decided 3 weeks ago in VCAT. And the situation was a person in Melbourne invited friends from Queensland to go on a Murray River houseboat cruise. And the cruise was unable to be undertaken because of COVID last year, and they sought a refund of $1,900.
Yeah.
And the argument that was run at VCAT before an experienced member was they could have their money back because it was frustrated.
Yes.
So
that's the
it's all on the question of what's frustration. And
yes.
A decision 2 weeks ago in VCAT came along and said that in those circumstances there was frustration, give me the money back.
So that's interesting. So we may have a little precedent set here because we've had a number of these calls, of course, during the pandemic
over the last year we had. But here's a case by an experienced VCAT member that deals with the issue.
Exactly. Beautiful. All right. So stay listening for next week, Caitlin, and hopefully we can have an answer. Great to see you, David.
Thanks, Virginia.
Don't drive your car out of here. Just walk.
I do.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Excellent. Oh, and before you go, this text has come in. Hi, I work at Russell Kennedy. So I am one of the lawyers who writes the aged care contracts. We do try to make them understandable. So thank you, David, for pointing out that it is tricky. There are 8 pages of legislation we have to include.
Oh, I'm not surprised. I read them for clients from time to time, and I say there's nothing to negotiate here. They're there to match the legislation.
Yep, and that's it. All right. Well, thanks for making contact and thank you for listening. And thanks to you for calling in. David's back next week and we can answer a whole lot more questions at that time.